Now, in our first segment, we're going to continue the conversation on President Bio's address at the state opening of the second session of the Sixth Parliament of the Second Republic. This morning, we're going to speak to parliamentarians on their take. In the studio, we have Honorable Dr. Mfasoli Koma of the APC, and we have Melvin Tijan Mansari, Senior Parliamentary Correspondent. Good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
We also extended an invitation to the Sierra Leone People's Party to send a representative and honorable member of parliament. We're yet to receive their representative in the studio, but they give consent to be here today. Anyway, we'll start the conversation, Dr. Koma. What's the overall assessment of APC MPs in Parliament from the President's address to you?
Well, thank you very much for that question. Indeed, one, the tone was different, but more particularly, going through the speech line by line, I believe the ordinary person will see the disconnect between what the government claim they have achieved versus what the reality is on the table or in the homes of the average Sierra Leonean. But I think what is noteworthy is that in the speech of the president, for the first 10 to 12 paragraphs, he talked about security and peace. And of course, he extended appreciation to the All People's Congress for joining hand in peace. Of course, he talked about how it's important that this parliament, the opening of this session was not just a ceremony in itself, but it was symbolic of a milestone. He talked about why the fully constituted parliament meant a lot to the nation, which drives our attention to what happened a year ago when parliament opened, when the APC were not in parliament. But it's also a reminder of what could happen if, in the dispensation of his duties or execution of his duties, he did not take in cognizance the role of the electorates in the process. I was happy that he stated that each seat in parliament represents the voices of the people. But I'm also reminded that under his dispensation, the voices of the people have not been taken into concern. It reminded me of the fifth parliament when 10 members of parliament were removed. It reminded me in the fifth parliament when those 10 members of parliament were replaced by the SLPP. It also reminded me that even in one constituency, which was constituency 110, an election was conducted, 3 elections were conducted to ensure that the seat goes to SLPP, because the runner-up in that election was a candidate from NGC. So in this time, and in this parliament, and in this session, if he comes out and talk about peace, and reminded that the voices of the people should be respected, I hope, and only hope, that his actions will match his words.
You say there's a disconnect between some of the things the president said and the realities. Could you highlight those areas where you consider the disconnection?
Well, he's talking about feeding Sierra Leone, which is one of his flagship programs. And he's talking about how the lives of the people have changed, how the government pride themselves in bringing development to the people. He's talking about human capital development. But I want to say a few things about food security and feeding Sierra Leone and hunger, which must remind ourselves that Sierra Leone rank among the countries that are seriously hungry. We have a global health hunger index of 31.3%, which points to a serious hunger crisis. And the global average of hunger is 18.3, which is moderate. And the World Food Program, as well as the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, have warned that countries that are higher in hunger have a tendency to deteriorate in insecurity. And we've seen protests in countries that are fighting against high cost of living. Of course, globally, we know that the three C's, which are climate, cost of living, as well as um, um, conflict, are the things that are driving much hunger. And we see that in countries that are seen as the highest hungry nations in the world are countries that are under conflict. But Sierra Leone, being at 31.3, we've been warned by the hunger, action against hunger, that we have a tendency to deteriorate to one of the hungriest nations in the world. So we are seriously hungry right now, and we are not in conflict. So it begs the question, we are not in conflict, we are seriously hungry, and we have a tendency to deteriorate to the most hungry nations in the world. What can the government do, or what is the government doing to ameliorate these challenges? So for us, when the Finance Act was brought to Parliament and an increment was made in the taxes or dues on rice, we said this was a bad government policy. The government's position was that they want to use this money to boost the agricultural sector. So 10 months down the road or 8 months down the road, I think it is an important time for us to ask the question, how much has the government saved and how much has the government garnered in terms of the 5% that they've levied on rice importation, how much of that 5% in fiscal or nominal value do we have at this point?
Honorable, do you think the public is yet to reap the fruits from the prudent economic measures that the president do claimed his government has achieved over time?
Well, when you say prudent economic measure, I will beg to differ that this government have not implemented or executed any prudent economic measure. Why am I saying that? Under this government, we've seen a bloated budget, a bloated wage bill. We've seen an increment of offices. The division of one ministry making it two ministries in the place of the Ministry of Economic Development and Finance, the Ministry of Gender Affairs and Social Welfare, bringing up a new Ministry of Environment when we have the Environmental Protective Agency, the forming of new directorates. All of these offices, the ensuring that consistent pattern of ensuring that we have deputy ambassadors in all the missions across, or almost all the missions across the world, when the previous government only had one or two deputy ambassadors. So if you say they are prudent, I don't think so. And that is why I always say, when the APC government talked about austerity, people use it as austerity being a bad word. But austerity means it's cutting your coat according to your size. Prudent financial management to ensure that you manage what is available to you. And if you don't do that, then we'll see what we see now. The exchange rate being so skyrocketed, being at 2,000 plus as we speak per the dollar, and too many money chasing few goods. The cost of fuel, of course, we've seen 1,500 reduction in the price of fuel. But when you look globally in terms of the cost of fuel, the barrel of fuel is at its lowest as we speak.
Just to bring to the public attention that we still expecting a representative from the ruling SLPP in Parliament, who is yet to make himself available in the studios. But Melvin, it's a pleasure having in the studios once again.
God bless you, sir.
Melvin, how rosy is the picture that was painted by the president during his speech during the state opening?
I think it was partly rosy in a sense that the president was able to advance and provide some facts and figures telling us when it comes to construction of health centers, talking about inflation and giving facts and figures there. So in terms of rosiness, of course, he did very well in capturing some of the accomplishments for which the SONA is meant, not only by virtue of its constitutional provisions in Section 84, 86 of the Constitution, but as a matter of what was expected. I think, I mean, averagely, the president met expectations for the fact that the speech was not long, but at least 5 or 6 pages of the speech speaks to facts and realities. And I think the biggest reality he spoke about is the state of politics and governance. And I think that's the most honest and frank evaluation in which himself being a politician, but telling his colleague politicians that don't take the people for granted. Sovereignty belongs to them, and they must rise up. In one of the points, in point 181, he said, in this August chamber, you are both representatives of your constituencies as well as architects of Sierra Leone's future. It is incumbent upon us all to rise above the din of political discord and to focus on greater good. For me, I think that's resonated very well, but in terms of practicalization, that's where the conversation or the argument will begin. So I see President Bio, the human side of him. Of course, he was responding also to honorables, the bench of honorables undertones in terms of beats and those things. That shows the human face of the president. And many people believe we can have those kind of rapport between the president directly and members of the opposition. I think it will enhance the democracy. But there was a downside also in which we saw the conspicuous absence of leaders of the main opposition, APC. We saw their seats were empty and no excuses have been proffered so far. So for me, I think that speaks to the reality. Another resonated point, which is in my estimation a demeriting factor, is that of you sense minutely that the president is still wallowing around us versus them. You sense the nuance point that it's still the winner takes all, in as much as he was calling for that. But when you go outside of the script, you sense some of his undertones. We are basically saying that this is a done deal. So wherein there is no room for, especially the issue of the tripartite, he said it should be treated with urgency and sincerity. But the question begs, who should be exacting that honesty and sincerity in the first place? So all of those were issues. I think I would give the president a 50% pass.
Melvin, for many people whom I've listened to across Sierra Leone, I think one of the key highlights from just what Honorable Infa mentioned is that of the fact that the president acknowledged that indeed power belongs to the people. And I think he was firm on that because he echoed same in his opening and that of his closing statement. What's your key highlight aside from saying? What do you see as your key highlights?
Well, with regards to that sovereignty belongs to the people, it's a fact. It's an overstatement of the fact, so it becomes rhetorical.
Has it been replicated? Do you see?
Well, that's the dissection we need to take, because if you say sovereignty belongs to the people, here in Sierra Leone, the rights of the people, for example, freedom of assembly, is still a taboo. So how can you say sovereignty belongs to the people? I think that was a political rhetoric. If you say sovereignty belongs to the people, it said that, of course, sovereignty belongs to the people by way of them having the political power in the social contract kind of setup. And if you're having a disputed elections outcome, that takes away or undermines the sovereignty of the people, because at the end of the day, whatever the results are, if they are not reflective of the decisions of the people, I think that undercuts that one. So that can also be a rhetoric if it's not well addressed. And if you put that in tandem with his pronouncements on the tripartite, you see there is a lot more work to be done.
Dr. Koma, you said many of the things he touched on, you don't seem to give approval there. What areas were you expecting the president to talk on that he did not talk on?
Well, first of all, I want to respond a little bit on Mervin's statement saying the opposition leaders were not there. But I don't know if he was talking about the opposition leaders in parliament or the opposition leaders in the party. So possibly he's talking about the party.
I think I have clarified that
party political
Okay.
leaders of the
Yes.
political
Okay,
party
so
leaders.
yes. Okay,
No
thank you. I missed
Minkailu, no
that.
Yansane.
Okay.
Unlike when you were sworn in,
Yes.
they were all around. But in this case,
Correct.
they're not around.
Yes.
And no
That's
excuses have been profiled.
that's noteworthy. But indeed, what the disconnect more has to do with the appreciation of what the people saw, the appreciation of what the people experienced, and what the speech stated. I mean, I must give it to him. It shows really that the president believed, based on the statement from paragraph 1 all the way to paragraph 14, except 6 and 7, that talked about the gender empowerment bill and the leadership of parliament recognizing their efforts in it. All talks about peace, and all talks about unity, all talks about diversity, and all talks about the will of the people. So the rhetoric is positive in terms of what the president should be seen to be embodying as a father of the nation. You should be the person bringing the country together. And that did not happen in 2018 through 2023. But if in this sixth parliament and the second session, where the whole parliament was constituted, if he comes out with a statement of this nature, you will realize why we had, to a large extent, a decorous sitting in the state opening. Because pretty much whatever he says reflects our reaction on the opposition bench. But if he's saying things that are positive, if he's saying things that we have expected him to say when he assumed the office in 2018, then we have no reason but to accept those words and believe that he will match those words with actions.
It's more like you were charmed. It's more like you were charmed with those words.
Yes. But the disconnection for us pretty much is when it comes to food security, when it comes to hunger, and when it comes to the economy. The economy is the other underlining word that every given government or nation should pay keen attention to. And if you cannot feed the people of this country, if the people are struggling to get food on the table, then no matter how much you do on other areas, you will not get a pass mark. You will not get a pass.
This is a government that we've seen that has shown commitments in its strides to ensure that he allocates about 10%, which is according to the Maputo Protocol. Under the APC-led government, it was a little over 3% that was allocated to that sector. We've seen 10%. Is it not something that is worth commending? They will say Rome was not built in a day. You will not expect to just cultivate today and eat tomorrow. It takes time, Honorable. Don't you think it requires commendation? The bold step.
Well, what I would say is you have to have a connection in policies. You cannot spend your way out of poverty. You cannot spend your way out of hardship. What is consistent of this government is the social aspect of their policies. Meaning, if I will increase budget spending on agriculture, but at the same time, I will introduce a tax that would increase prices of food. At the same time, if I remove subsidy on fuel, at the same time, if I remove subsidy on education, then the end result at the end of the day will still be high cost of living. And if the cost of living is high, you will not get that praise. The former government of the APC managed their social responsibility in terms of welfare programs. And how do you ensure those welfare programs are rolled out? It's by giving subsidies to the drivers of inflation. And the drivers of inflation, cost of food, cost of fuel, and just the cost of living.
But most of the pointers you mentioned were these were done under your purview. Say, for instance, the Finance Act of 2024. It was passed in Parliament, where we have the main opposition, APC, and that of the SLPP in that Parliament, Honorable. Why cry down something which collectively you should take responsibility for?
Well, the Hansards will speak the volume. If you go to Parliament, you follow how we debated on the issue, it will tell you the whole story. We warned against it. So if we warned against it, it is only but fitting that when we come in public, we allow the people to know that we did warn that that would not bear the fruit that we desire. I want to call on this government to find an alternative in supporting agriculture. I want to call on this government to remove the taxes on rice. Find another way to bring money into the pocket and stimulate growth in the agricultural sector. That is our call. I'm sure there are many ways you can do it. That is why in this material time or in this material moment, we want to ask, what is the nominal value of those tax increase on rice? How much have we gained in the process? How much money have we gained in the process? If the government is able to answer that, then we'll know whether that policy has benefited the people of this country, or that policy will create an increase in the yield of agricultural productivity.
So during the president's statement, the seventh item on his speech, he said, I quote, I commend the leadership of Parliament, the leaders of political parties, and the representatives of paramount chiefs for their dedication to conducting the affairs of this legislature with mutual respect and a shared vision. Together, we can work towards a brighter, more peaceful, and prosperous future for Sierra Leone. End of quote. How does this happen? How can this be seen playing out when all we see, especially between the APC and the SLPP, is one tearing the other?
Finger pointing. Well, like I stated or made mention in my statement, he talked about the gender empowerment bill. And the gender empowerment bill was a child of the fifth parliament. The gender empowerment bill was a bill that was accepted across the aisle.
No, now we're not talking about the gender empowerment bill. We're talking about working together.
Okay.
For shared vision.
Okay, well, I was just trying to say 6 was talking about gender empowerment, and 7 was pretty much underscoring the essence of that. That is what I get from the speech. It was pretty much following what he talked about the gender empowerment and how he felt proud that we do that. But if you ask him in a general scheme of things, we have a lot of laws that we've passed in Parliament that were accepted across the aisle. Removal of the death penalty.
But you sit there as a main opposition member of Parliament, and so are your colleagues from the APC. You sit there. Many of these things come through Parliament. At the end of the day, for some of these things, the people feel betrayed by you, the MPs, which is both green, red, and even the Paramount chief MPs. But when we sit to have these conversations, you conveniently point the fingers at either the president or the executive arm of government. What role do you play as members of the legislature? They're in Parliament.
As I've made it clear, I've not point fingers on all issues, but you call things by their names.
Which is exactly what we're also doing now,
yes,
calling you out on your own.
No,
probably.
I'm saying the gender empowerment bill was a baby of Parliament. Everybody accepted it. It was a good bill. I'm talking about the removal of death penalty. Everybody accepted it. It was a good bill. I am talking about the cybercrime bill. We critiqued the bill as it came to Parliament. The minister at the time was magnanimous enough. We had a cross-party committee that was set up. We pretty much rewrote the whole bill again and made it a law. We're talking about the criminal libel law. It was cross-party. But when you talk about issues that are contentious, it is the right of us to ensure that the public knows. Talking about Finance Act, if we talked against it, the public should know. And that is the more reason that as oppositions, we've created something we call a monthly press conference, so the public will know. Because whatever comes out of Parliament becomes the product of Parliament. But if you do not follow parliamentary sittings, you will not know exactly what transpired.
I'll take this right over to Melvin. Melvin, you've been in Parliament for so long and you're very familiar with not just the history of Parliament, but even the protocol of Parliament. In your honest opinion, how would you rate the effectiveness and efficiency of opposition MPs in Parliament, particularly the main opposition APC?
Well, I think we should give them their flowers. It's easy to be an opposition than to be in government. I have watched APC in government, I have watched them in opposition. And same for SLPP, I've seen them in opposition. So it's easy. But what is lacking here is what options are they putting on the floor? Of course, they will take it to a debate, but then eventually they will win the debate and lose the votes. So that's a downside of the opposition. But there is a strength that should be harnessed by the opposition, and that's the lack of a 2/3 by the governing SLPP. I don't think the opposition has harnessed that's what I would call that political neutral space, because had it been that the SLPP secured 2/3 of 99, then we will only live in the opposition. But because by virtue of the outcome of the 2023 results, SLPP is not having 99 MPs. They are barely having how much? 81. SLPP, APC is having 54. We're having 14 paramount chiefs. So the opportunity there is nobody has got the constitutional strength enough. So what happens? We've seen the opposition being very introspective, meaning they only know that, oh, if the campaign can, we're not going to win the votes. But what have they been doing to reach out in causing what I would call disturbances for the government bench? I have not seen that from the opposition. They are only resting on their oh, we don't have majority, but they also don't have it. So they have not been reaching out. And many of the critics of the opposition say they are being too obstructionist. I partly disagree. They are victims of manipulation. Of course, what I mean, the opposition, in terms of MPs, in terms of caliber, in terms of experience, I would tell you, even for the SLPP, it's not a day's job. The opposition, in terms of content, they have it. But what they don't have is that leverage for them to do things as their conscience will please them or in the interest of God. What is this saying? The APC MPs will know that certain things are good, but if Wallace Johnson Street, or in this case, Old Railway Line, feels otherwise, the MPs don't have the leverage, the latitude to do what's best for country and their conscience. And that speaks to what was seriously omitted in the speech of the president, the constitutional review. Sierra Leone badly needs a constitutional review because some of the issues fundamentally are causing the problem. For example, why should we have a president that sits as a member of parliament? That undermines the doctrine, not only the doctrine of separation of powers, but the doctrine of accountability and transparency. So what's the effect of that? Because the president is a member of parliament here in Sierra Leone, we've never seen in the 160 plus history of Sierra Leone, except maybe I was not born by then, but it's not captured in the books, when we see parliament summoning the president for a question time. It has never, and it will never happen unless we change the correction, we amend or review the constitution. Because the president is an executor and a player. That does not keep safe for everyone. And I think, like I said, he did not talk about the constitutional review and what his plans, but he was also saying something that I find very interesting and rhetorical. He was commending Parliament. He was announcing his plans for legislations to be brought to Parliament. But what he was silent about is what is his legislative agenda. Legislative agenda in this case, for example, in Ghana, the executive furnishes the Parliament its annual work, its yearly work plan of how many bills they are intending to bring to Parliament. So it gives the Parliament foresight to be able to develop its own calendar. But because we are having an executive that is so scattered in its legislative agenda, we're having a Parliament that can sit this week and next week adjourn for another 1 week. Why? Because the Parliament is not having a calendar, and by default, that's as a result of the executive not having a parliamentary or a legislative agenda. And I think the president, his political affairs minister, his parliamentary liaison, they could have done better. I think if I should give credit, I should give credit to the speechwriters, because in this case, in many of the opinions, they are very honest.
Melvin, one of the bodies in Sierra that sits very paramount in terms of checks and balances, I would say, is that of the audit service. The president talks about
That's point 125.
an increase in the confidence in the audit service. Many people have seen this one as a claim that is yet to yield the required dividend with no data to back same, when in actual fact we've seen a situation wherein the former auditor general and the deputy were sacked, removed from office as a result of whatsoever, for which the recommendations from that committee were never made, present. So those members who were sacked, Melvin, how visible, how let's talk on the claims.
It's unfortunate that a member of the government bench is not here, and I would have loved it when both of them are here and I would play my own role. But as of now, I will attempt to also. Well, you're already playing the devil's advocate in keeping the balance. So let me just speak from the journalistic perspective. So this was a question I posed to the minister and even the leader of government business on that very unique meeting, press conference in Parliament. So I quoted this particular section that says in point 125, confidence in the audit service has increased. And the question I asked, I said, the removal, the suspension and proposed removal of the auditors general, if the government bench thought it or deemed it as way of increasing public confidence, when of course we know institutions like the global umbrella body for auditors, they come out with position statements. You go on the website, it's clearly there that this has undermined, it will undermine the fight for accountability and transparency in public sector. This will deter other auditor generals not to venture into these areas. And they are saying this might plummet the country's ranking in terms of auditing standards. So for me, this was quite, when I addressed the president's speech, I used two registers, rhetoric and realities. This for me is perhaps the biggest rhetoric here, because you've not even published the tribunal report on your proposed action. And I would have loved it for somebody from the government bench to have sat here and asked that person whether they are privy to that report. Even the honorable member, who is the ranking member from the opposition bench, I stand to be corrected, is not privy.
I'm not.
Which is a violation of the laws of Sierra Leone. And that's where I would blame the opposition. They have not been rigorous enough. It should not be the evolution of the president to make public or not. It should be a demand from the House. They have the numbers to move a motion that even if it's not the president, but the attorney general, to make that document public. How? By furnishing the leaders of the House, by furnishing lawmakers. You cannot deal with the audit service. It's a public office. It's a public office, and the funds that are being injected there are the taxpayers' monies. How can you warrant or summon an investigation into the auditors general and come out that they should be removed by Parliament and following procedures in Section 137, which in my estimation, it's fallacious. I'm not a lawyer, but you cannot use the benchmark to remove a judge to remove an auditor general. Why? I have argued this in many opinion pieces that the auditor general was appointed in consultation with the Public Service Commission, unlike in the case of judges. Judges were appointed in consultation with the Judicial and Legal Service Commission. So how are the drafters of the Constitution cannot envisage that this is a misnomer to use a yardstick to remove a judge for that of a public servant in the case of... So that's a fundamental argument, and I think that was taken to the Supreme Court, but it was not countenance at all, unfortunately. So for me, I think the biggest blow for the president is that I think the speechwriters, they could have also explained what his intentions are in terms of making this document public or not. Because, for example, Philean, how can you go to court with somebody and a judgment is landed and that person is not served a copy of the judgment? That's a travesty of justice. And when the president talks about the judiciary, it's good that he only glossed over the judiciary and talking about what he intends to do. But I was expecting him, if you look at his very first address to the nation when he assumed office in the opening of the 5th Parliament, he spoke a lot about judicial reforms. But this time, that's a muted point. He did not talk a lot about the judiciary and the need for reform. And I think the Justice Minister, the Chief Justice, in terms of them being purveyors of justice, it's an injustice for the tribunal to recommend that these people be removed and they are not served with the copy. You don't need to be a lawyer to know that once you are handing a judgment, both parties must be having a copy of the judgment.
The president applauded the Anti-Corruption Commission and spoke briefly on corruption. This takes us down memory lane on Inauguration Day when the president emphatically spoke about the 3 wars he's going to wage. One, he said, was against corruption. With all that's going on, just yesterday there was a celebration of Honorable Paran, one of the churches in Bo, Thanksgiving service for reinstatement. That said, coupled with every other thing that has happened, has the president really fought a war against corruption sincerely in the interest of the people?
What we've noted as an opposition, I'll start with that, then I'll go in and out of some statements my brother Melvin made, is that we've seen an exuberance or even overzealous drive by the president and his government when it comes to fighting corruption that has to do with opposition members, period. So the war against corruption under this government has been selective. Whenever issues of corruption comes up, from the office of the first lady to, they will tell you, let's go to from 2007 and see what happened when that first lady was first lady. And that pretty much dilutes the conversation. Corruption has been selective. The fight against corruption has been selective, but it has not been consistent. Of course, in situations when that has to do with personalities, like the clerk, for instance, we saw how it was pretty much muted. We saw how the investigation was not made public. So now let's go back again to the tribunal set up by the president against the Auditor General. Consistently, as an opposition, we've stated that whatever happened to the Auditor General was unconstitutional. But of course, this discussion should not just be limited to the opposition. I want to agree that, yes, probably we have to be more continuous in the announcement of what that is done that is wrong. But I also think this discussion, and I'm happy you asked it, and I'm happy that they included it in the statement by the president, because if it was muted, we probably would not have had this conversation. But I'm happy that it was stated, and it was a complete irony. It was paradoxical to what we are experiencing when it comes to the whole theatrics around the Auditor General and the deputy. It's obvious why the process has even delayed, because Parliament is the institution that has the powers to remove the Auditor General. But of course, when you go back to snippets of what's coming from the report, you know it's clear that this Auditor General should not even have been suspended in the first place. Because if you expose corruption, and I'm glad you asked if the president, how strong is he against corruption? If you expose any signs of corruption in any office, you should not say you should not question the president or the president's office or bring disrepute to the president's office. I think the president's office should have do an introspect and internalize the problem and see how they can ameliorate the challenges in terms of the production of receipts and vouchers from hotels, in terms of the hotel saying this is not the amount we charge, in terms of the hotel saying this is not they were not in this hotel at this given date. So I think those problems should have been internalized instead of coming after the wrong person in the name of the Auditor General. I think it has done disservice to the office. I think it has really brought the confidence in the Auditor General or the fight against corruption by this government at its lowest ebb. At its lowest ebb.
I think I ask again, Honorable, in your opinion, how much of this speech resonates with the daily realities in the country?
A lot of it is not like you can go from page to page. The numbers are correct, but if you can go from page to page, you will see the challenges. And I think it's good that the speech was not so bulky because probably it will have even exposed more challenges that this government is facing. But I think it's good that they were able to put it to paper. But the positive that I'll bring out of the speech is the statement about peace and security, the acknowledgement of the role of the opposition in bridging peace, the acknowledgement by the president to ensure that electoral reforms are instituted in the country, the acknowledgement that the institutions that conduct elections, if they are not they do not mirror the society, then challenges will continue or will pass.
Let me apologize to hold you down. We'll give you the opportunity to continue with that statement, with your submissions. But again, it's 9 already from studio clock, the time which we take a short commercial break. We'll be right back.
Rokel SIM Copper Plus is an electronic mobile banking application which connects customers to their respective bank accounts through their mobile phones. With Rokel SIM Copper, you can do cash withdrawal, cash deposit, pay for goods, balance inquiry, transfer from RC bank account to another bank account, utility bills payment, buy airtime for GSM phone, request foreign exchange transactions. It is an application that can be used at any time and anywhere within the confines of Sierra Leone, thereby creating 24 hours access to your account. Rokel Commercial Bank, the bank of choice.
Feels good to see your face again. It's been a very crazy day. The joyous feeling in the air when rain falls on a sunny day. Happy, yeah. Let the stars, let the roll.
Enjoy life's little pleasures with Maltina. Maltina. Share happiness.
The name Rokel is derived from the longest river in Sierra Leone, which empties into the Atlantic Ocean that portrays the greatness expected of the bank as a gateway to banking. Now the bank has 17 branches, 12 outlets, and more than 200 agents located in strategic areas of the country, and most of them are supported with ATMs. Embracing the digital age, innovation and transformation, the bank has introduced its e-banking basket with remittance services like MoneyGram, Western Union and RIA. In the basket, you can find ATM, card services, POS and SIM copper products. With the money transfer services, you can send and receive money from Sierra Leone. With our Visa and prepaid card, you can withdraw cash locally and internationally, shop online, pay bills, and much more. Whether you have an account or not, Rokel Bank will issue a prepaid card to you. Just load it up and you are on, including the member
Part that could enhance them to do wrong. It's shame on you all.
Junior Shawaz says, as an APC man, I just find it disgusting when present party representatives are talking about the president violating our constitution. Where were they when EBK unconstitutionally sacked our then elected vice president and ignored the verdicts by our regional justice? What a shame to see some of you calling your fellow thieves names.
Continue, Fidian.
Stephen Nyale says even those who removed their vice president and refused to listen to ECOWAS are discussing the removal.
Ronald Bradford Judson says Melvin, the executive powers has nothing to do with Parliament. As MPs represent their electorates, it's unconstitutional for president to also hold the position of a member of parliament. That tells you the flaws of Sierra Leone's successive governments. They do as they please, and not even the judiciary or parliamentarians raise any concern is beyond me. Yes, Vivian.
Usman Kavoni says we should be robustly thinking about what we should repeal and replace in our outdated constitution, not analyzing the speech of president. This is why I said that these two parties have to be removed and replaced with people who have the willpower to change the lives of our citizens.
Mosdi says, when did the Sahelian economy been in a better shape that positively impacted the people? Sahelian have been struggling since independence with all the basic human needs have never been addressed. It's upsetting when we hear these politicians competing for the race to the bottom. Basic human needs like proper clean water supply, electricity, basic daily needs, this basic daily meals, good healthcare services, proper sanitation facilities, standard infrastructure, good standard education, etc. There is nothing good to write home about when it comes to governance in Sierra Leone. So enough with Unaboku talk.
Osman Kavoni says these two parties shall be gone come 2028, mark my words, because both parties are playing games with the people of Salon. APC accusing SLPP for a lot of things that they themselves failed to deliver, and SLPP will in return blame APC for not doing what they didn't do. We're dealing with people who are in this game for their own interest.
Mohammed Ramadan says the most important thing in any country is peace among citizens. Out peace, you will not talk about the economy.
Rahim brother says 6 years now, una still talk about death penalty and the biggest achievement that
Ronald Georgestone says sovereignty belongs to the people on paper, but not in practice, right? Because it's belong to the people where aren't they allowed to express their opinions through peaceful protest? Why are their fundamental human rights, their fundamental rights being abused? And censorship is the order of the day by this government and the former government.
Usman Kavoni says there is no law that prohibits the president not to appoint deputy ambassadors, but I do agree that we have a big government which could increase the wage bill.
Usman Kavoni is also citing Chapter 2 of the Constitution of Sierra Leone, which speaks about fundamental principles of state policy. Says sovereignty belongs to the people of Sierra Leone, from whom government, through this constitution, delivers all its powers, authority, and legitimacy.
Ronald George Stone says, how unfortunate that a ruling party member of parliament is absent. This is gross arrogance and disrespect to the electorate.
Ronald also says your former government failed in boosting agricultural sector with all the talk of food security that this government could have continued from, yet they've come in with grand ideas that are yet to bear fruit in 6 years. And it will take more than its mandates in providing food security because it needs more of infrastructure and food processing than just growing rice or cash crops.
My last peek for this segment is from Usman Kavoni. He says both parties have the same modus operandi.
Last for mine is from Vandy Kalon. He says, if the opposition are talking about economy, how did they leave the economy of Sierra Leone?
Gentlemen, your response to the messages, starting with you, Mfa.
Starting from the economy, going to the statement about the approach of boosting agricultural productivity and the essence of how we can realize more productivity in the agricultural sector in terms of being more innovative in the sector. I agree with the with the view that we need more innovation in terms of agriculture. The approach needs to be revisited, and we need all hands on deck. But more importantly, as the approach of this government being to feed saloon will be more private sector driven. I think in addition to resources given to the sector, government should also ensure that they monitor the productivity by the private sector in the respective areas where they operate in. Because we've seen long ago and still going in the country wherein people will grow rice but export it to neighboring Guinea. So a process needs to be in place wherein as much as you're supporting the agricultural sector by supporting the private sector, but a return on that investment must be monitored by the government, ensuring that as much as we give, we should see the productivity, and the productivity should come through the government, and government should pretty much purchase the rice, if it is rice, or government should have a setup wherein the products that come from the market will be monitored. Otherwise, they will be exported, or they will be smuggled out of the country, or even the prices has to be monitored, and government has to even know what the cost of rice is. I always say the cost of rice now for even the person that cannot afford to buy a half bag of rice is higher than the person that can afford a half bag of rice or even a full bag of rice. So if government is to say we are going to feed saloon, then government should ensure, one, that firstly, we see how we can remove the 5% increment in the importation of rice. Secondly, see how you can utilize our revenues from the mineral sector to support the agricultural sector. Thirdly, see how once that productivity is seen or evaluated, then we should know where the produce will be coming from and which markets across the country will be distributed. Of course, I want to note that the construction of bridges, or the idea to construct bridges to replace ferries that are hand-drawn, I think it's one venture that we as an opposition should support, because it will ensure that food productivity will be brought to the main market. And of course, ideas around seeing how the transportation of this produce should come to the main market should be envisaged by the government, and see how support in those areas should be given. I always say our challenges in this country, though they are political, but the problem really lies not in the political parties, but in the people. So you can bring another political party, and the problems probably will still continue if we don't reform and reshape our minds in doing the things that is right for this country. Corruption is still a challenge in this country, we should note, and that even though the rhetoric has been that the government wants to fight corruption, it has not been consistent in the fight against corruption. So if in a situation when you have selective justice, then pretty much you will fail in your approach, because you leave a lot of stone unturned, or you leave a lot of criminals off the hook by you just selecting the people that you don't like to go after.
Melvin.
I beg to differ with the MP who said the problem is not the political party, the problem is the people. If you look at the fundamental reason behind the Constitution on establishment of political parties, it will just speak to the fact that the problem, okay, let me first establish the fact. The fact here is political parties exist to shape the political will of the people. So wherein you are saying the people are the problem, it means the political parties are not shaping their willingness enough. That is one. But let me just tell you what's the problem. The political parties, the constitution, and bad political actors are the problem. Political parties, they are ideologies less in Sierra Leone. Let somebody come from SLPP and let somebody come from APC. Let's discuss ideological issues. For example, defense spending. For example, social issues around FGM. For example, issues around constitutional review, what kind of constitution we want. Issues around the doctrines of separation of powers. These political parties, they don't have ideologies. So their only ideology is to win an election. And when they don't win, they become obstructionists. So instead of blaming the people, the political parties have not been fulfilling their constitutional mandate, which is to shape, assuming that every one of us in Sierra Leone don't understand, assuming like that. The political parties, they've got the duty to instill understanding on the part of the people on national issues. And so for me, I totally beg to differ that because we get political parties, then we not get ideologies that make me do so. And coming out to the constitution. Of course, 1991 to now, it's a long period of time. Times have changed, circumstances are changing. We see now the advent of technology and innovation. So those are the compelling reasons. Constitution, that is not to say there are no good provisions in it. Many, many provisions in the Constitution are good, but many of them, again, are becoming obsolete. So until and unless we review the Constitution and ensure that the people's sovereignty is more assured and power is more separated, then it's always going to be a problem. And finally, bad political actors. This is what the politicians don't want to hear or don't want us to talk. You have bad political actors in APC, you have bad political actors in SLPP. It's until we, the people, these political parties, and there are stronger laws to eliminate bad politicians, we will not emerge from these issues. You have politicians who will come and sit and talk nicely, but when they go to their villages, when they go to their party office, they tell their supporters different things that is not aiding peace, security, and national unity. So until and unless when people in the APC begin to call out APCers out for their wrongdoings, it's until and unless when people in the SLPP call out SLPP people for their wrongdoings, those bad actions will continue. So addressing the political situation in Sierra Leone, we need good actors, we need a constitutional review, and above all, we need political parties with ideologies.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being a part of the discussion here this morning on Wake Up Sierra Leone on AYB television and radio. This is what would end this first segment. We would go on a quick break to transition to the final conversation. But you have the first bites to respond to those
Talk
messages.
about political parties. You cannot use politicians interchangeably with political parties. And politicians, irrespective of your political party, you're still a Sierra Leonean. So that is the problem. And parties have ideology. I'll tell you that the APC's party ideology is about social policies that benefit the poor people. That is our policy. So when APC is in power, you see that the cost of living will go down because government will subsidize on the welfare of the people. That is our ideology.
Thank you so very much, Melvin Tijaman Sai. We appreciate having you as always. Time we go for a short break. We'll be right back. And when we come back, we will continue the next segment, and it's our final segment into this edition of the program.
Rokel SIM Copper Plus is an electronic mobile banking application which connects customers to their respective bank accounts through their mobile phones. With Rokel SIM Copper, you can do cash withdrawal, cash deposit, pay for goods, balance inquiry, transfer from RC bank account to another bank account, utility bills payment, buy airtime for GSM phone, request foreign exchange transactions. It is an application that can be used at any time and anywhere within the confines of Sierra Leone, thereby creating 24 hours access to your account. Rokel Commercial Bank, the bank of choice.
Transfer charges chop off a chunk of what you're sending. With no Sonko, you can send money for free with AfriMoney any day, anytime, no matter the amount. Dial *161*1# now to send money for free with no charges. AfriMoney, no Sonko.
This is a different kind of energy. That's gang energy. With malt, ginseng, and vitamins. So recharge and take charge. Black energy drink with malt. That's our kind of energy.
From dawn to dusk, and from dusk to dawn, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days all year round. This dedicated team is here working industriously to bring you
the facts,
the analysis,
the interviews,
the news,
the views from the ordinary people.
We set the agenda.
We bring you seamless broadcast.
we cover the happenings.
We give you the angles on the screen.
We cover the events.
We tell the story. We produce the shows.
We commission and ensure the stories are delivered.
We bring you all actions and excitement in sports.
We get our inspiration from you because you have chosen us as the nation's most trusted voice. AYV, the home of all things credible, factual, and of course, all times balanced news.
Welcome back. This is still Wake Up 7 on the YV television, channel 33, and on radio 101.7 FM. Don't forget to send us your comments and questions on our AYV News Facebook page. And as we go along, we'll have to go through same, but ensure they are tailored as to the issues that we're discussing. And now, in our second and final segments of the program today. Today is the International Youth Day on the theme, Clicks to Progress. Youth Digital Pathways for Sustainable Development. The day celebrated is marked to celebrate the contributions of the youth in the development of society alongside understanding the challenges faced by them. Notwithstanding, young people are leading, they're leading and also in charge in the digital adoption and innovation, with 3/4 of those aged 15 to 24 using the internet in 2022, a rate higher than other age groups. However, disparities persist, particularly in low-income countries and among young women, who often have less access to the internet and digital skills compared to their male counterparts. While there is an urgent need to enhance digital inclusion, youth are largely recognized as digital natives, using technology to drive change and create solutions. So this morning, to discuss the day and its relevance, we do have in the studios, of course, someone who, I think he brought us Diamond, is Reverend Diamond Suma, and he's a youth empowerment enthusiast. He recently completed his public management fellowship with the Mandela Washington Fellowship Program in the United States of America. Good morning, Diamond. It's a pleasure having you.
Good morning.
And I must say congratulations on completing your fellowship program. I think you've just met with one of your, she's also a fellow.
Well, I meant to literally who supported my application process sitting over here.
So you see, Fibian is not just supporting in the journalism landscape.
Oh, yeah.
She's also doing pro bono out there.
Exactly.
And a pro bono pays.
It pays a lot.
When thou art converted, strengthen thy brethren.
She is a good church member.
Again, we're also expecting the Minister of Youth Affairs, Mohamed Oman Bangura, to also join us in this second segment, of the conversation. But Diamond, again, it's a pleasure. I asked for my diamond, and I'm here to see one.
Well, it depends on the definition for diamond. It's something precious, so it can be the youth space. But we will demystify that definition as we go along.
I think there is no argument to say. I now know indeed you are a youth enthusiast. When I asked of the diamond, you had to connect the two. But again, let's talk on the relevance of the day. Why celebrate this day from our end?
We will start with the demograph. Yeah, globally, we're talking about an agenda which is bigger, which is 2030, and talking about the youth bulge, 1.8 billion stronger. And narrowing down to Sierra Leone, looking at our demograph, a greater part of our population, according to statistics, 60% or more, is below 35. So that is massive. And every other age category before youth age and after youth age are in the consumer end of things. So young people are the producers of everything, absolutely. So whatever conversation, whatever infrastructural development, whatever landing, whatever click, whatever progress you talk about without young people is vain. So now you see the world, including the United Nations, are coming back to pick the young people, because conversation has been, I call them the Igbo generation, the older people have been manning conversation, hosting leadership. And even, it might interest you that our state constitution do not give opportunity for a young person to become a president, which is a conversation for another day. They said you have to be 40, which is absolutely away from the youth age, which is something we are going to push for. Young people can lead. We've seen it. We've experienced it, and we need to start practicalizing it. So the conversation is deliberate from click to progress, simply because what is happening at the digital age is not fully represented on a natural ground. But let me clearly explain what click is, because alone, when you say click, it has a different meaning. So to me, broader than, I don't know if you talk Creole here, but to me, broader than down there. But clicks literally mean, it's a word that we use to select something using the computer and surfing the internet. Not necessarily, people who are in some social group, promoting some kind of gangs or whatever. That's not what it means. But it says, for example, today, I wanted to add a friend on Facebook that we had a conversation this morning, and it shows that my Facebook friend list is full, 5K. That is my max. And then on a realistic note, my very friends that I have are not even up to 8,000. So there's difference between the clique is 5,000 friends, and the reality of my friendship base, the circle, is not even up to that amount. So how do I transform the 5,000 into progress? How do we use this demograph, this clique, and inform it to change society? And we find out that the digital spaces where young people feel that that's the point where we thrive. That's where we advocate. That's where we share our voice. You see what's happening in Kenya. You see what's happening in Uganda and very many other places. Nigeria. We use the digital media to send a message, to advocate, to create that change.
Suma, what do you think then is the role of young people in a nation's building or development, so to speak?
It's one word: we are the drivers. So anything without us, it's not for us. But every nation that plans its development without young people is bound to fail. Because if you are old and you're planning something for the next 50 years or more, which sustainable development defines, it's not for you. It means you're planning it for a generation that is to come. Because we use this word sustainable development quite a lot, and we don't understand it. Unfortunately, I did my master's in sustainable development. It means you are using today's resources to benefit us now, but without altering the existence of those resources in the future. That's what it means. So but very, very many actions, drive, and policies are looking at solving the now and forgetting about the implications in the future. Now we're all quiet. I'll draw one experience. My fellowship, I did it with University of California in Davis. I did 2 papers there that are published in the university's website. One of them is around renewable energy and water. And it might interest you to know that we have 0.5% water, fresh water left in the world for all of us. Is that a shocking news? Over 95% is salt water, which is not consumable by humans. So what effort have we made? I mean, to me, I said, why is it that our minister never had this conversation open? Why is that all the PhDs and every other person, nobody told Africa? Nobody tell us we need to have viable solutions on water recycling method to start being able to prepare us for the next generation. So the next World War is going to be over clean water, and let nobody lie to you. And we have not even begun conversations around that. So this is what we talk about, moving from the cliques and on to progress. It's a deliberate process. Very many ministries of government and institutions are very much likely effective on social medias, but they are not effective even in the offices. I'm not pulling down people. These people are elected officials. We elected them. And very many cases, I don't blame President Bio. He's a very good man. Yeah, he hired people who he thinks they are experts to address this issue. And these people are not working. I'll tell you one example. I normally surf the net a lot. And I'll say this, I said I was going to say it. When we went to the United States, all the embassies are coming to visit their fellows. We don't have none. I went to the US the first week of my fellowship. I emailed the Salon Embassy in US. This is not a joke. And up to now, they haven't responded to that email. In the United States. And we had to find someone in the fellowship where Sabi person before we got to the embassy. Why should that be the case? In a digital world, in the first world. You know, I mean, when you say these people will try to mimic politics, I'm sitting here as a young person. Already, I'll say I'm a successful young person, but I care about the generation who hasn't reached there. The point which I'm sitting now, I can never be poor anymore. I can never be unsuccessful. I cannot fail. But we're concerned about the very many young people there who are looking up to become part of this conversation. And that's the reality. People need to be effective. People need to ensure that young people are not beggars anymore. If I come to your office, I'm not begging. I'm coming here as an expert and as a partner. Let's have a conversation.
Focusing on young people, you know, getting to probably gainful employment stage. When I hear clicks to progress, what comes to mind is I would remember like 5 or more years ago, even up to 10 years ago, the conversation was about positive use of the social media. And then fast forward to where we're at now, you see that many young people have sort of found gainful employment by doing things they like.
Sure.
Those who create content on social media, the TikTokers, the Facebookers, they create these contents as young people. They enjoy themselves doing it, but now they're making money off of it as well. So this brings me to the Youth Digital Pathways for Sustainable Development. It seems there has been a pathway, that social media, but how do we enhance it on a larger scale for more young people to jump on board? And how do we make it sustainable when also have in mind that some of these content creators focus on things that improve the lives of other young people and even their communities?
So, I mean, to respond to that, the issue has a lot of infrastructural thoughts around it. We've tried social media, we've tried media, we've tried digital technology, and we've seen it worked. Sitting here, my first degree is accounting, second is development, master is sustainable, another is on the legal aspect. I've never read technology, but I can do website, I can do internet sales, I can do online marketing, I can do broadcast live streaming and all of it. Because I went online, I went to YouTube and I asked, how can I do this? And I was able to learn it. And I tell you, for every live streaming coverage, if I do for an event or whatever, Phoebe knows, sometimes I ask Phoebe for prizes because I don't know. The least I take is $500 for it. The last YouTube account I had was paying me hundreds of dollars in a month, which I can't say. You know, but the question is, how do we emerge our space into it as Sierra Leonean youth? Where do we fit to the conversation? It has become serious more than ever, even in the United Nations, because 60% of what is needed to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal depends on digital footprint. So that's why even the United Nations is also emphasizing on this. But for Sierra Leone, interestingly, according to the data reporters, the analysis that they did on Sierra Leone last year, 2023, we have 22.1% of our population have access to internet. How do we then want to achieve this? Not even 50% of our population. And when you demystify this data going forward, that most people that have access are the people who are in urban areas. And those in the rural areas also have plausible solutions to address critical problems, but they don't have access. And for us, young people have gone into entrepreneurship, quite a lot of it. And the digital space is an opportunity for them to thrive, Phoebe. A lot of people are making money. We see Nigerian content creators, even film actors have left the space, and they're all coming as content creators because that's where the money is. And that's where the market is for us. One, it has to border around the private sector, around government policies, and around our individual self. So firstly, we need the infrastructure. We need to move from conferences to landing infrastructures, Phoebe. I don't see a reason why you can say you spend $1 million in hosting a conference on tech, and you don't have 1 acre land, which is an open space where I can come with my idea and spend a week and develop an app that could solve a problem. We don't even have a single app that you can go and see why it passed papers. And there are young people who can develop mobile apps, and they just need electricity and data. You know, so since after the war, we've had opportunities. I've worked in the media and in different spaces to organize workshops. And I asked myself one day, Phoebe, I said, how many workshops have we held and attended since post-war Sierra Leone? What changes has that occurred? We go to workshop and take the per diem and go away. What happens? But how can we transform some of those ideas and those investments into critical spaces like what AYV is doing? This is a landing infrastructure. This is massive. And your reach is so wide. And sitting here talking about something, it reaches across from end user, it reaches across from financiers, it reaches across from collaborators, and quite a lot of it. And that's what young people need. Now, yes, thanks to the mobile companies, the private sector, and now you can go, you buy a dongle for social media for a week, which is okay. But we need packages for creators and ideators.
Suma, this conversation is coming up at a time when Sierra Leone just concluded the first ever tech summit in country.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see a disconnect?
Well, from a personal space where I sit, I see yes. Because very many of this thought and conversation are things from an idealist perspective. And don't call young people on what do you need. When was the last time young people are called and say, what do we need? I mean, this is a recommendation for Minister of Information. She is a very, very smart lady I respect so much. And I'm looking forward to meet, but I don't have the opportunity. You know, maybe my name doesn't sound a bell. I don't know. I mean, knocking the office might sound ages, so I decided to keep on my space. But I feel before that conference, they should have, get an open forum for young people. Young people, what do you need? Do we need a conference? Or do we need an infrastructure to think? I've been into other spaces and other countries. You see young people, they can be in a facility like this just to think and make their app. And when they're done, they're being sold. Let me shock you. Before coming to this program, I tried to surf the website yesterday for some data. And I went to website, government website. They are not navigating. You need to try that and one day and understand. I went to the search bar of those websites. I can't call names. And if they don't sort it out, I'll start calling names by the next month. Because that's what I've decided to do to create that change. You search, I need this. It's not even searching. And when they want to develop a simple website for a ministry, they call international consultants. And there are young people here who can develop websites, whom you can give that money and you can support their trade. Where is the local content agency? How do they harness local resources to come into the conversation? When you want to design platform, and the last time, I mean, there's someone who was calling young people to come with imagining innovative technology ideas. And sometimes those ideas are stolen and being inherited by someone, saying, okay, I did this. Sure. It has happened. I met a lot of young people who said, I shared my idea, and you have this non-disclosure agreement. Okay, you can't share this now. You don't have to talk about it. You won the race and this. And somebody took the idea and metamorphosed it's theirs. So that's tech stealing. And it's happening in Sierra Leone.
You seem skeptical about the enabling atmosphere to ensure.
I seem deliberate. Because it's my constituent, to be honest.
Young people.
It's my constituent. Because we don't have much that was left for us. But we, and all of us, are keen to leave something for other people. I mean, so our point is to speak out, our point is to give back to society in the best way we can. But do the young people have the opportunity to? I'm telling you, if young people have these spaces, there will not be time for them to talk about politics. They will come into creative space and make money. A lot. Because I want it. I want to see a space where I can go and go teach what I know, but there's not that space. And I don't have the resources to put them all together. So where do we go from here? That's the conversation.
And that's a question that perhaps you might have a suggestion to. We have all the beautiful conversations in the country, but it brings us to, the tangible results of all the conversations we have. What are your suggestions as to the pathway to get to there? Interestingly, last week, one of the Facebook questions, someone was saying, we keep saying we're not there yet. When are we getting to the there?
Okay, so there are a lot of things. Based on what we've done, I can tell you for once, the private sector is doing quite a lot. But what if this private sector decide to pack their bags and go? The only institution we knew, which was Seattle, was killed. What will happen to our internet gateway? What will happen to telecommunication? Has anyone ever think about that? One day I asked this global question to the United Nations: what happens if internet fails? What happens if electricity goes out? So this I'm asking to Sierra Leone as well. So the deliberate effort is one, we have to invest in infrastructural development for young people to have this tech conversation and be very much more proactive in their tech space. And two, we have to promote digital literacy skills among young people deliberately. They are not part of our school curriculum. And it's the order of the day, Phoebe. One ATM machine is representing 3 people in a bank. And in the US, I don't even see a bank opening. You don't need to go to meet a cashier. You put your money, even paper cash, you put it in the ATM. Sure. It checked you and it logged in your money. Sure. What happens when we get to that age when there will be no jobs in the bank? What happens to all the BA in finance, BA in this? Nobody is thinking about going beyond that. And that's why the joblessness in Sierra Leone is so severe. Because the universities are not even sincere about doing research about what Sierra Leone market needs. You know, the other day I was saying every year we graduate over 4,000 people from the finance sector. We literally have, I think, 15 banks, including a central bank in Sierra Leone. Name me one bank that employs up to 1,000 young people. So that in itself is deception. Nobody's talking about it. And sometimes when you talk about it, they said it's critical. But the people who are educated, PhDs, and so what, we should embark on research. What do young people need? Where are this data? Let's use it to inform decisions. But it's just vague. The other day, I saw some director of some university posting an advert, a video advert, which is so terrible. I wrote him, I said, no, for a university of this nature, you put this kind of thing out. No, if even you give a coursework to the student, they'll do better. Please, next time you do that, I'll react on this on social media. Don't do that again. They won't. So we need to be proactive about pushing digital literacy skill. The other day, DSTI, yes, they started pushing courses on Coursera, which is so amazing. I also did part of those courses, but how many young people do have access, internet access to go through it or can afford it? Data is expensive. We need to push the policy conversation that make data accessible and affordable by all. And also, we need to also ensure that young people being able to trade these digital skills. I am passionate about tech, but also if I can't make money out of tech, I'll leave and go somewhere else where I can make money. So they need to also harness our skills. You can't leave me and take an expert from India and pay them $10,000 to come and fix a website that I can fix in the next 24 hours, and you can't pay me that money, all in the name of an expert. So we need to also understand and trust our homegrown industry. There are a lot of smart guys around, smart young people in Sierra Leone, but we are not harnessing it because we feel we are too serious for the young people who can do the do. And this is why Temple Run is in increase.
To the Sierra Leoneans in the creative sector, since we're still on the cliques,
Yeah.
the Chief Minister, Dr. Moinina David Senge, posted 2 days ago on his Facebook page, to Sierra Leonean creatives, I've been working to ensure monetization on social media platforms directly and indirectly, and hashtag we will deliver. What value do you think this adds?
Well, that's the conversation when you say click to progress. That's a click. So I respect Dr. David Senge so much, and he's a creative from a very good school. And that's a proclamation. I am one person that will look forward to the monetization because all my Facebook account that I'm running are landed in different countries. I either landed in UK or landed in the US or in Kenya or in Nigeria. Whenever I go to this country, I try to set up and put it for business purposes. So when do we start? There are people who got like 100K here in Sierra Leone, but can't monetize simply because Sierra Leone can't meet the prerequisite. So those are policy decisions. So Minister David Senge, that's amazing, but let's walk the talk.
Suma, it's the conversation seems more like a moment of reflection.
A moment of relief for me.
But again, is it just, of course, relief and reflection as you already highlighted?
Exactly. Yeah.
Is it just that one? Should we just, reflect, on what should be done, on what we need, I know, and then the conversation stops there. What?
It doesn't stop there. That's why we say progress. So progress is about deliberately working towards it. You know, it's unfortunate the youth minister is not here. I could have maybe profiled a couple of recommendations because sometimes we don't have a way to even talk to our minister. So sometimes when we give them feedback on social media, which we know as a holy home where we can speak, they see it as confrontation, and some naive and silly thinking will feel it's politicization. For me, which I don't, I work in politics, so I know what is politics, I know what is development. I mean, the other day I said to the Minister of Information, I said, can you please, release an email address where people like us who think and want to suggest to government to say, this is what could be best. And so it could be sent it. It has never seek response. It's my friend, but has never seek response. So my Minister of Youth is my minister, Oman is my minister, but also that ministry needs to do more, to be sincere. I mean, I want to see an opportunity. Maybe Omar might be listening, or maybe is thinking about the International Youth Day event, which is, I don't feel we need to be having events on International Youth Day only. That's not what we need as young people. We need to be thinking to those days when International Youth Day comes is to report and also share strategies. It's not young people have gone away from t-shirts. We've gone away from and speeches. Let's do the work and let's talk the talk. This is what clean mean. I'm looking for an opportunity where youth minister or tech minister will have an open sitting with young people on a monthly basis, once a month. So just listen to them and maybe inform their strategic direction. We used to have a blueprint report on youth. Since the last one expired, what was that? I think 2008, 7 or 8. Yeah, we still haven't got one. So my question is, what is the strategy for young people in Sierra Leone? Apart from...
there's the youth policy.
There's the youth policy. Okay, there's policy and there's strategy, which I know you also know. So we're looking for a strategy. So us, the youth, we're demanding a strategy. Policy is fine, but we're demanding a strategy and we're looking forward to that.
When we talk about young people, you'd find, there's difference in opinion as to how prepared young people themselves are. I've heard conversations with people who would say, make an unserious person serious. Are you convinced that youths are in a position to receive help, for lack of a better way to put it, to project them to a higher height?
Phoebe, if young people have the space, they can do incredibly amazing job. You know, as part of my side work, like giving back, I set up this initiative with other young people across the sub-region called Give Back Africa. So we're not begging for money. We're not begging for opportunity. We're just asking for spaces on how to leverage what you have done. Yeah. So young people, if they have the opportunity, they could have. I mean, you see so many young people going into Kush, even graduate going into Kush. It tells you there is limited alternative, Phoebe. It tells you. But when there are options, you could choose from among the lot of shopping list of options and decide what to do. You go to the US now, a young person can say, okay, I don't have a job, but I can hire a car for $400 a week and then put it on Uber scheme and then make like $2,000 a week. That's an option for business. All the Ubers I took were all young people who work in offices and after office come and ride Uber. That's an alternative source. Or people can do online job. Now, most of the online jobs I did, I mean, even to get paid, I had to find an account that I opened in the UK, I think is Muzo. But most of our bank accounts here in Sierra Leone, again, do not fit also to those payment plans. They'll tell you have a PayPal account. So this brings in the private sector. They are going into a lot of digital space, but how best the digitalization gives us opportunity to also interact at global level. Young people could make a change if we have better options. I am not saying young people have the right to do the old things as it's happening now, but let's give young people better option to not doing the wrong thing that is happening now. The young people of Sierra Leone are amazing and incredibly amazing. When we went out there, we saw this power of those young people amongst others, and we need to do the best we can to make sure young people be who they are in the progress conversation.
Reverend Suma continues to stay with us as we see the need to usher in Ransford McLean, who is all set from our studio to bring us the latest update in sports. Ransford, what's up for me this morning? Good morning.
Very good morning, Samuel. Good morning, Fabian, and to our guests and audience who've been following Wake Up Sierra Leone this morning. Yeah, a lot of happenings in sports, and firstly, I take you through for story this morning as Mogbima Queens failed to get their way through to qualify to the CAF Women's Champions League qualifiers, and that as a result of they were able to a goalless. But let me take you to this story that has been very much interesting over the weekend. Edmund Abu Jr., one of civil society activists in the country, has been elected president of the Sierra Leone Rugby Union over the weekend after he pulled 14 votes out of 25 delegates that was present from the 27 approved delegates. But his contender, Nasu Fofana, has questioned the legitimacy of the elections, as she notes that proper processes and procedures were not followed. According to findings, Madam Nasu Fofana left the hall that the Olymp Africa Center in Gorwich with a delegate before the elections was conducted, asking the moral guarantors that the National Sport Authority, Ministry of Sport, and National Olympic Committee of Sierra Leone to put on hold the election. We'll also I'll continue on that story. And now to football. Eastern Lion Football Club and Blue Rangers Football Club have announced the ticket prices and match schedule for the upcoming CAF Confederations Cup and CAF Champions League preliminary rounds fixtures. Blue Rangers will face San Pedro from Ivory Coast on Saturday 17th August, while East End Lions Football Club will take on ASC Giraffe from Senegal on Sunday 18th August this year. Open stand in is as announced as 20 millions, and coverage stand is 30 millions, and VIP for 250 million as the Southern Arena. But both clubs are urging all football enthusiasts, fans, and supporters to secure their tickets ahead of the said matches. And the outcome will fully forced and chaired by these fans to ensure victory for both clubs. And the owner of and chairman of FC Kalon, Mohamed Kalon, has said the best way for African football to improve is to have competitive international friendly matches with various clubs in other continents to betterly assess their squad during pre-seasons. Kalon was speaking to journalists in Nigeria following their 2-1 defeat to Enyimba FC of Nigeria on the final preseason match in Nigeria. Let's have more from that.
This is the best way to go. It's the only way to go. We keep challenging ourselves to the best. Nigeria, obviously, is one of the great nations when it comes to the continent. They've improved a lot in the playing systematic football, playing organized football, tactical football, which is good. I think if we want to improve, we should be hosting international friendlies, international competition, just to challenge the players, to move them from the conference. Because if we always stay in Sierra Leone and you guys stay only in Nigeria, then how are you going to know how it works? Only when you qualify, you have only one shot. If you go out away and they give you 5-0, you come home, it's difficult. So us coming out here playing 4 games here with all these positive results, because in all the games we score. So if we score 1 goal, and even if we lose 2-1, we're coming back to our home. So you see, so if we land that, start exposing our team, challenge the players, take them away. Let's go to Morocco, into Northern Africa, where they've been dominating for the past 10, 20 years. So we want to challenge them. We want to challenge them. We want to challenge ourselves. That's our objective. So I think African football is moving, and if African football have to move to places, I think Nigeria, Ivory Coast, and we should be.
In sport, as I mentioned early this morning on Wake Up Sierra Leone, that CAF Women's Champions League qualifiers for the Wafuzun A 2024 has ended yesterday at the Bo Stadium, Southern Arena, precisely. Eagles de Medina from Senegal emerged as champions. They secured the top spot in the group out of the 7 with 7 points, and will represent the region in the CAF Champions League in South Africa, November this year. Mogbema Queens finished third in the group with 6 points after determined girls' earlier defeat. But the Sierra Leone Women's Premier League champions, Mogbema Queens, settled to a goalless draw on their final match against Red Scorpion from Gambia. A win for them could have seen them qualify to the CAF Champions League in South Africa. Better luck to them. As the Prince of Sierra Leone, the rooted-based club precisely could not make the way, could not qualify to the CAF Champions League group stage in South Africa. But that's all for sports. This morning, wake up Sierra Leone, and back to you, Samuel Ibrahim Krumah and Fabian Sule in the main studio.
Indeed, many thanks to you, Ransford McLean, for the latest updates in sports. Sad, though, for Mabrima Queens, after they've been defeated, and I think they are off from that competition. Is that also the case?
Last match against the Red Scorpion of Gambia, having drawn two straight and secure their third match, they defeated their opponents from Mali 2-1. So the last and final match was really a disappointing moment for them to qualify.
Do you see that match as a learning point for Mabrima Queens?
Absolutely, it is a learning point because this is the second time they've been trying to qualify to the group stage, the tournament proper, but it's indeed a learning process for Mabrima Queens, the hotel-based club.
Better luck next time, Mabrima Queens. Many thanks to Ransford McLean and
Thank
the rest
you.
of the sporting team for the best of sport. Thank you. We still have in the studios Reverend Diamond Suma. Fabian, will it be prudent to go to a few messages?
Yes, it would be very fair on our viewers to get their feedback.
Have you any? Should I start?
Go ahead.
Okay. Rogi Debula says, you see when he speaks with evidence and knows the statistics. This is what we're missing. This country needs people like this, and not people who think we are still in debate school. Oh. Let's us meet and talk as young people and articulate our problems and prefer lasting solution, man.
Ronald Georgestone said, imagine what he's saying was at least to it or have a way of discussion. That would make more impact on youth development. They won't admit their lapses or reach out for the sake of our next generation.
Continue.
They have all these beautiful ideas of tech. Fail or get poor again. Have you tangibly helped the youths in to tap in things? A YouTuber built a whole digital hub with all digitalized equipment and handed it over to the Ghanaian content creators. How about you doing same in Sierra Leone? We have heard a lot of fans, successful people, but their success are not touching lives.
I think that's the last.
I don't know. I'm sorry you're perishing about the definition for success. Go, yeah. I mean, I've gone through this and I've succeeded, and I'm willing to give back. Just search the name on Google, please, and it can tell you a lot of and what I am doing for young people in Sierra Leone. Yeah, currently I work in a space where I integrate a lot of young people. You go now, there's already young people there having a youth leadership summit. I was part of the battle of that. I've worked in a number of young youth organizations. I'm sure you've heard about Restless or SPW. I've been there and I've trained 1,000 or more young people. This diamond sitting here was a national coordinator for U-Report in Sierra Leone. That makes young people integrate a lot of the development communication. On a personal note, I have those kind of personal support. I don't have that level to land in that infrastructure. My job, it is the role of government to interact with the development partners to do this. So don't misconstrue what government should do and what an individual should do. From where I'm sitting, I'm willing to give back to society by helping in the best way I can. But don't put, I know that person is an investor. When I said I'm successful, so use monitoring time and having a lot of cars and houses. But I'm successful intellectually and developmentally. So let's move from clean to progress. And that's what we're discussing here. I'm not fighting against government. So just to be clear, yeah, I am preferring solutions. And AYV is the best way I can because I don't have way to meet my Minister of Youth. To have audience with the minister in Sierra Leone, apart from some who are my friends, you have to have a name or somebody needs to place a call. Except for where I work, I have interaction with them. Ask very many young people How many of them have met face to face with their youth minister? So I'm putting that also to Oman by reasons of recommendation. Get a small hall somewhere around your office or where young people can have their meeting and meet, and on a regular basis. Because sometimes we're available for international conferences and not available for local and community talks. And this is where we're missing the link. Sierra Leone is not about international. We're a country. Let's fix us, and then we can share those learnings out there. But we are more excited about sharing a lot of learning out there and talking about a plausible plan, which is not reflecting in this country. I shared with you my experience, my culture shock. I went to the US. I sent an email. It took 1 month, and up to this date, the Sierra Leone embassy in the United States could not even respond to it. What can you say about the whole High Commission of that nature? So the youth want a space. And when I went there, interestingly, they told me about the Agora platform because there are other people who are doing business. Oh, we have this opportunity for a global market. There's this Agora here. Like, really? And nobody ever talked about this back home? That there's an Agora platform where you have your local products and they can talk you through how you can get it into the international market. Why do I need to come to the US to understand that? So it means there are information and opportunity, but they are kept somewhere.
As we try to round off, what would be your message or perhaps motivation or inspiration to young people who are either watching or listening now or who would have an opportunity to stumble upon this content?
To young people, thank you so much for being a young person. Being a young person is an amazing achievement in its own right. Yeah. And to young people, there are opportunity, there are platform. From your Facebook, you can be able to go and monetize to that level and become who you want to be. If you don't have the opportunity to go to university, go to YouTube and Facebook and TikTok. These are schools that can teach you to become something and to learn something that you can trade out there. Your ideas are unique. I know you're still finding solution and finances. Keep holding on. Whenever you have the opportunity to reach out to people like us, we're there. I can tell you my Mandela Washington Fellowship, I saw that I was trying to go out of that age and I said, let me apply. And just one message away to Phoebe had to review my application. Another message away to another fellow who I never knew I saw on LinkedIn. She responded to my application. Another message to Dominic, who was busy with his work outside Sierra Leone. They responded to my application. So a lot of people are out there that wants to give back, but you need to reach out.
Sure.
And also maybe a couple of recommendations, because I don't just say, but I also prefer. There's need to be infrastructural support, which is government policy needs to be translated into action to have those infrastructural landing. There's need to be actions on digital skill literacy. Let us walk the talk. There's need to be also access to financing. To very many multilateral company and private sector, what they are doing as corporate social responsibility, no, it's a promotion, literally. They need to give the money and invest in tech, and let's feel it. And then also let's use a local solution to address problems.
It's on that note that I say thank you so very much.
Thank
but
you
again, there is a message of commendation here for you.
Sure.
It says it's from Ezekiel Sam Kino says, he's truly articulating real entrepreneurial skills and spirit as a roadmap for young people's personal growth and national.
Thank you so
Thank you so very much. Soma, it's been a pleasure having you here this morning to discuss issues having to do with all of us, youth.
And happy Youth Day to all of us.
Yes, indeed. We invited the Minister of Affairs, Mohamed Oman Bangra, but unfortunately, he was not with us in the show. But I suppose he's been watching from wheresoever. But this is where we are into this edition of the program, Wake Up Sierra Leone, on AYV Television, on Radio 101.7 FM, and on our Facebook page, AYV News. Similarly, on our DSTV channel 3899. We say many thanks to our sponsor, Rokel Commercial Bank, for your continued support to the program, and to all our audience. We want to appreciate you so very much for your time. It's been a wonderful day. Samuel Ibrahim Kroma is my name.
And I will happy International Youth Day to all young people. Make yourself relevant, not for the country, but for your personal sake. Be successful. Try as best as you can to be a success story for your own sake, which by extension would affect your community and the nation. Have a lovely day and have a productive week. Take care.
Bye-bye.
one platform for news every day in our countries alone. For education, entertainment, political affairs, TV. We got enough Tanga one inside Sierra Leone, like a big quantity. We breeze not a shit.